Good morning, welcome to a video on this week's new coffee release, which is Rancho Grande, a naturally processed coffee from Brazil. It's a Tapazio varietal grown at 970 meters above sea level, and it's from a farm I've been purchasing from for the past 5 or 6 years through our import partners, Falcon Speciality. So today I'm going to describe a little bit about the coffee, its flavor, how I roasted it, and how I think you should brew it. If you're new here, my name is James. I run a coffee roasting company called The Blending Room based in Hull, East Yorkshire. We've been roasting now for a little over 15 years, and every week I release a new coffee and I talk about it on the internet. Why did I buy this raw coffee to roast? What was my motivation? Well, primarily it's because I enjoy long-standing working relationships. I have been purchasing coffee from this farm for 5 or so years, and importantly, through our coffee importers, Falcon Speciality, for in excess of 10 years now. So I enjoy the notion of year on year purchasing products, finding out how they're developing through time, and it's good as a roast facility as well to bring back things that you know that people enjoyed. Now to the roasting. I love roasting coffees from Brazil. I roast a lot of coffee from Brazil. Pantano forms the basis of pretty much all of my roasting. Well, maybe about 70% of the roasting. This, Rancho Grande, is from the same country. It is a different cultivar, it is a different method of processing, natural versus pulp natural, but there are some similarities in its production, its altitude, so there are some ideas that you can transfer through one coffee to the next. Plus, because it's a coffee I've been purchasing for 5 or 6 years through the same import partners, I have some historical data and some historical understanding to work on. Now, that was on the Probat. This is the first time I've roasted it on the Loring behind me, but there's some idea about how I would approach the energy inputs for this coffee. This roaster allows me to be very expressive when it comes to fruit characteristics. And that's exactly what I wanted to try and promote with the roast profiles that I've used for this coffee. I had to balance both energy, thermal input, pace with this so that those fruit characteristics were expressive within the cup. But because it's a natural, low altitude coffee from Brazil, I really wanted there to also be texture and balance within the mouth. So not too quick and not too slow. And therefore my aim was somewhere close to 10 minutes in total roast time and a post first crack development time of around a minute to a minute 40, depending on how the coffee was sort of progressing through that part of the roast phase. Now, if you have a look at the 3 roast profiles that I've done, you'll note the first 2, there was a little bit of a blip in that post first crack time that we call the development time. I had, in the 3rd and final roast, come up with a method in which to mitigate this short bounce element. However, neither or none of the roasts had any sort of roast character within the cup, so I feel like whereas with the Probat I would have been quite concerned about the shape of the curves, with this, the Loring, it's a bit more forgiving on that behalf, and I'm actually still trying to understand exactly the interpretation of a roast profile into the overall cup profile. So let's talk about flavor. Knowing this green coffee and the methods of its processing, I wanted there to be an expression of fruit characteristic, and I employed methods within the roaster to achieve this. I also want there to be some sweetness and texture, and I also must have transparency of these flavors in the cup. So on the nose, what you'll know is that there's almost a tropical fruit character. There's a little bit of bergamot too, so imagine oranges, orange oil, that type of notion. And you can almost smell the sweetness. You'll know what I mean when you put your nose into it. So flavor-wise, yeah, so it's incredibly transparent. There's a lovely syrupiness to the cup, so texture and mouthfeel I think is really well balanced. It's that sweetness that comes through. There's almost a caramel characteristic. The play on the bergamot, the orange and the caramel is a match made in heaven. And I suppose there's a little bit of hazelnut in there too. There's no chocolate. So if you're looking for a Brazil coffee that is a chocolatey sort of classic flavor profile, this is not the cup for you. But if you enjoy fruit-forward, expressive, texture-based, texture-led coffees, then this is going to be one that you're going to really, really enjoy. So how would I brew this? Well, I think I've done that magic job of purchasing a raw coffee and roasting it in a way that is truly what we would describe as omni, so suitable for every method. I've got a filter brew here, and it gives me everything that I want it to do as a cup of coffee, so sweetness and transparency and balance and texture. But because the acidity is not particularly wild, I think that this would be a really great espresso-based brew too. Even though I've roasted this to be expressive in the cup, I think that the texture and the balance would be wonderful for those who also enjoy espresso. So if I had a preference, I'd always navigate towards a filter brew, because that's the sort of cup that I enjoy the most. If I wanted an espresso, something that was fruit forward, something that was a bit more nouveau, then absolutely Rancho Grande would be a good choice for that. I tend to also have at home a cafetiere on a Sunday morning, and I think that this would be a really great coffee for those full immersion brew people as well. So I hate to say it, I think you can find some degree of enjoyment in any one of these brew methods for this coffee, which actually commercially is a great thing to do. To summarize this week's release from Rancho Grande, it's both fruit forward on the nose, so imagine tropical fruits. There's some bergamot, caramels, there's a little bit of hazelnut as well. It's a very versatile coffee. You can brew it as filter, espresso, cafetiere, full immersion, any method that you can think of. It's been a great coffee to roast, and one that I look forward to roasting again next year. I don't have a huge amount of it, so if you think that you want some, do come and buy a bag. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this video. See you around.